Alright, five people. Not bad, not bad. Alright, so hello everyone. Joining me here today on Militaries Weekly is FCNF Thrawn. He agreed to do an interview to kick off this weekly segment, and I thank you for being here. So I'm gonna start off this interview by asking you to tell us a little bit about your history as a leader, as a person in the overall GTA community.
Well, I first entered the community in 2014. I was actually introduced to the community heavily by Scar. I actually have to thank them a lot for more or less getting my feet wet when it comes to being involved in the politics and just everything that the community has to offer. And I've been here in FreeAim, like I said, ever since 2014. And FLEETCOM was definitely not my first military crew. I came in with a crew known as the 21st ID. Later, the unit was redesignated to the 21st IR. And ever since then, I've just stayed with it. Unfortunately, the unit's no longer up, hence why I'm leaving FLEETCOM. But I've been here and there. I've been in Sentinel. I tried doing TDMs, but I never strayed away from being in FreeAim. Eventually, when it came to July 14th of 2015, I decided I wanted to start a FLEETCOM, and it was on 360 because my console had a problem with the HDMI port. The shell that surrounds the port ended up splitting in half, so I was no longer able to play on next gen. So I ended up starting FLEETCOM on 360, and we were up strong ever since. We were up until then. We were up until 2016, and then unfortunately we had to shut down because of the problem with running a crew on two platforms, and it just became too much. Then I was in Helix for a little bit. After Helix kind of went down, I decided on October 16th of 2016 I want to start a FLEETCOM again. And here we are.
Very interesting. So you've been involved in this community for a couple of years, or many years actually. Do you have any
Yeah,
regrets
and the military
throughout your
community
time?
actually wasn't the first. I've jumped around here and then, but I've always stuck with the military community. That's where I felt the most comfortable.
Do you have any regrets throughout your time as a part of the community?
To be honest with you, sometimes I regret not getting more involved, and sometimes it bugs me to not be able to do more and offer more. But the problem doesn't rely with us; it's with the people. People who have been here for quite a while already know that war is inevitable. You have people who are going to start it, and then you have people who are actually going to finish it. And I feel that's a lot. That's where a lot of the problem lies with my regret, because I feel like with enough time and effort put into it, and that's with anything that you do in life, you can make great things happen. And my honest to God only regret is that I wasn't able to get more involved. Needless to say, now on the top of the war, the community has been the most peaceful it's ever been since 2014, when a lot of the wars were kicking off. This is the most peaceful I've ever seen the military community. People were actually getting along. There's a period of everlasting peace. We're actually going and working together to go and quell one single threat. And that's what's amazing. And that's what always amazes me about this community, is that regardless of what your problems are with one another, if there's something that threatens all of you, you guys are willing to come to your senses and come together and quell that threat. That will never cease to amaze me.
Is there any misconceptions you had before being a leader, or misconceptions you think others have about being a leader in the
Um,
military crew?
with regards to being a leader, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of tenacity. And I don't think people who jump into it immediately, they don't realize that until it becomes too late. I've been here long enough to see tons of clans come in and out, whether it be clans in auto aim who have come into free aim, or clans in free aim who have just popped up on the radar for about a month and they disappear like if they were never there. I feel that people should honestly know what they're getting into before they go and start a crew or get into leadership in general, because leadership is not easy. To be honest with you, it sucks, especially when you have a crew as elaborate, as that abstract as ours, with the level of organization that we have, it can be tedious at times, but you just got to push through it. And quite frankly, it comes with the territory. And I feel that depending on what your cup of tea is with your crew, don't try not to overcomplicate things unless you want things to be more difficult and you can handle that type of work. And just put the dedication in there. Because being a leader does take a lot of dedication, and I don't think people, like I said, don't realize that until the very end.
What is the one thing you wish you had known prior to being a leader?
Prior to me going and being a leader, I wish that I would have known that not everybody is open to communication as you are. And that can go for everybody. Everybody is different. No one person is like the other. And I wish when I came into the community that I would have known that not everybody wants to talk, not everybody wants to be friends. And I'm sure a lot of the leaders out there can actually realize that, or if they haven't already.
So, is there any advice you have to other leaders or other people who might want to become a leader in the future that may be watching this?
Well, I do. And it starts off with going a little bit more into my background. When I first came into community, when I first started doing all of this, milsim, just getting into the military community and making connections, it was very difficult in the beginning. It was even difficult when I started FLEETCOM for the second time here on Xbox One after Helix had shut down. It took us a good month to get up off our feet, and we ended up losing people because of it, because they didn't want to make the push. They didn't want to go and do what needed to be done in order to make the crew great. And what I have to go and give with regards to advice to these up-and-coming leaders is no matter how hard the road gets, it's only going to get harder if you don't apply yourself. And if you do apply yourself, it's going to pay off heavily in the end. And take that from personal experience, because it was not easy to start up FLEETCOM again. It was anything but easy. But look where we are now.
Has this community ever caught you off guard? What do you think about the community, the military community as a whole?
The military community has always been a lawless land, needless to say. And what really caught me off guard was the LS conventions, actually, and how it actually went and brought the community together, whether in free aim or auto aim, because you did advocate for both. How everybody decided that they wanted to be a part of this, and I hadn't seen that before. Because you know as well as I do that some people hold grudges, that some people just want to go and continue to do their own thing, and everybody just wants to go and do what they want at their own discretion. There's no doubt about it. Everybody does. It was shocking to see that earlier this year, right at the start of the year, that the LS conventions had gained so much support, and so many people had wanted to go and be a part of this. It was this movement that was going and actually going, bringing people together, and it still is. Obviously, some changes need to be made, and some things happen along the way, but regardless, it is an incredible feat to have all these people, all these diverse military groups coming together and actually putting aside their differences to go and abide by a single set of rules. And that had never happened before in the community's history. People, tons of, if not dozens, if I dare say hundreds of people have tried to do this before since I've been in, and they've all failed. And the LS Conventions is the only promising movement that I've seen that is actually able to go and bring the community together. And if that isn't evident enough based on that freeload war that you had with, that your group had with Scar the other day, where you both were respectful and very humble and came to admit to your mistakes and obviously cleared up any discrepancies towards the end, it proves that the system works. It proves that there is a better way to fight other than just throwing tanks and jets at each other constantly, and occasionally using the orbital cannon. It's a clear way of fighting, and I feel that it is just the best move for the community.
On the topic of throwing tanks and jets at each other, I have caught wind that there is actually my own crews involved with the war with Rage. Well, I'd like to keep this interview more on topic with you and your crew. What do you think about crews that your crew might be enemies with at this point, and how you see them as a threat? What goes through your mind when you see a crew? Do you want to destroy them, or what is the motivation there for war, pretty much?
Well, um, if anybody knows, there's a thing called the rules of engagement. So the first thing that pops into our head is obviously a threat assessment, but it's not really we want to go at them and throw everything we have at them. No, our first instinct is to more or less assess who these people are, since they just popped up, and if they're friendly enough or they show that they pose no threat to us, not in regards to, okay, these guys can kick our asses if we kill them, just in, are they acting aggressively towards us? Our first instinct is not to go and antagonize them. If they're open to communication, and they're willing to negotiate some sort of ceasefire or alliance, we'll go and we'll take that first opportunity to talk to them. I've said many times before to the people I've talked to, other leaders, that our group is not based and revolved around war. In fact, it's actually quite the opposite. We go and we take the easy route, if you will, uh, negotiating, and just the political side of things come in first. And military conflict in any situation to any reputable crew should be the last resort, because you don't know how these people think. You don't know who these people are. And the worst thing you want to do is make an ass of yourself. Sorry if I'm so blunt. And going guns blazing when these people were probably up to talking to you about possibly an alliance or ceasefire.
On that topic, do you think that there are enemies that can't be reasoned with?
I do, and unfortunately, I really don't. I really dislike speaking illy of anybody, but unfortunately, one of those people is Rage Task Force, the Ottawa group that came in months ago and started saying, well, they started claiming that they were going to go and take over the community. Those people, they cannot be reasoned with, no matter what anybody says. We have tried time and time again to go and reason with them in the first war and the second war, because this is the third engagement that we've had with Rage, that FLEETCOM has had with Rage. And it has already become apparent that these people are just going to keep on going and doing the same things that they've been doing for months now, if not years. And just come in, kick the hornet's nest, and then when the repercussions are too great, they go and they run away with the tail in between their legs. Rage Task Force is, if not the epitome of a crew that cannot be negotiated with.
On to another topic. We all know that Red Dead Redemption is on the horizon. If it doesn't get delayed again, then we'll see it this fall. And crews like FleetCom are heavily based in modern, if not futuristic, warfare, obviously. My crew is a private military corporation. You have other crews that are so grounded in, military simulation. And do you have any predictions for how crews are going to transfer over to Red Dead, or if they'll even transfer over?
Personally, I know that FleetCom will be going and more or less reorganizing itself, since it's a completely different game with a completely different genre, and possibly the unit that we're setting over there is probably going to have a completely different name, but still keeping with the theme of the Maritime Assault Force that we are. With regards to other crews, I can't speak for them. I know there's one crew in particular that doesn't plan on moving over because the game and the setting just doesn't fit in with who they are. But uh, I'm sorry if I'm not able to provide a little bit more insight and a lot more elaborate details for an answer, but it's kind of hard to do that when I have little to no insight as to what other crews are doing.
And let's give an assumption here that, let's say that crews do not move over to Red Dead 2. Would you believe that the military community after Red Dead 2's launch would be existent? Or do you think that things would get a little bit dark, if that makes sense?
It's hard to say because I'm a very results-driven person, and I won't believe it until I actually see it. the military community has been here for quite a while. It even exists on GTA 4, a game that wasn't really built for militaries, but who would have thought that something as simple as a bike helmet and a helicopter with miniguns on it, it would go and spark a whole new community. Nobody would have thought. Littlest things can make the biggest difference. Personally, I don't think the military community will go away. GTA 4 survived as long as it did. The community was still lively on there. I still think the military community does have a strong chance of surviving, but like I said, I don't know for sure, and it's hard to say. With everything that's been going on, and even with Red Dead on the horizon, the community is still strong. We're still talking to each other. We're still hosting crew activities and public sessions or invite-onlys. So it's more or less hard to tell. After the fact, maybe not. It all depends on what the game puts out.
I'm gonna try this wrap this up pretty soon, but another question that I have is, do you believe that a community or a selection of people should be able to basically decide something for the rest of the community? Or do you think that the community should basically just police each other and itself as it has for a while?
Uh, well, if it's working out, I see no reason to change it. I don't feel that the best move is to go and have one group that polices the entire community, with regards to rules, etc. It doesn't work because I've said it to you in private. I've talked with other leaders and said that free aim is it's an indomitable aim preference. It is. You can't just come in here and claim you're going to take over without somebody going and stepping up. And that's what we've been doing the Rage Task Force. And that also applies to anybody who tries to go and take over the community, regardless of whether it's through military or peaceful means, because not everybody's going to go and agree. Though, arguably, the military community has been rather peaceful. I will say that all the bigger groups are going and coming together and talking to each other, and even the smaller groups as well have just been minding their own business. There hasn't been really any other major conflict that at least I know of, other than the bigger crews of the community going against Rage Task Force. So that does raise the question, would that work? Would one group going and policing the community work versus what we've been doing for 4 to 5 years and just police each other?
Well, I'm gonna try to keep my input brief. I believe that this community and a lot of other communities, they don't understand that no matter how hard you try, some people are just gonna pop back up. They're gonna break the rules, they're gonna be anarchists by nature, and that's just something that it's kind of like a law of life by this point, just looking at the chat right now. But the another question, just I think this is going to be one of my last questions here, is that FLEETCOM, I have already talked to you in person about the private free mode wars that the LS conventions are setting up after my free mode war with Scar, and assuming that Rage and FLEETCOM are still in a state of war, would FLEETCOM and Rage agree to do a private free mode war by following the rules, pretty much set forth by the conventions, set vehicle limits, set time limit, to have a good old-fashioned fight? Or do you think that it's past the point of return, if that makes sense?
Personally, and I've had this thought, and like I said, I don't like speaking illy of anybody, especially out in public like this, because at the end of the day, everybody's a person and treat people the way you want to be treated. But Rage is beyond the point of reason and salvation as a whole. And how many times have they gone and tormented the auto community and the freedom community? How many times have they gone and falsely advertised their unit as a Milsim, yet they're playing like terrorists, slinging rockets at us? They're just, the only difference is between a terrorist organization like ISIS and them is that they actually wear military uniforms. At least they have that that part of the organization set in stone.
Now, the LS Conventions is an organization advocates for the use of clean warfare, but do you believe that against people who do not fight clean uh, that they should also be met with retaliation in unclean warfare? Or do you think that they should be isolated, if that makes sense, from the community, or just ignored in general?
Well, um, isolated if they haven't already isolated themselves, or just ignored as a whole, because it isn't really fair. Because at the end of the day, it's a video game to go and judge how other people play. If you want to go and use a rocket, then use a rocket, but don't be going and just using it on us. It becomes a problem when the larger crews have to go and deal with people who sling rockets at us, and just, when you look at that, Felix in here trying to get attention.
Don't worry. We're safe.
Oh well. It's if they want to play that way, then they want to play that way. But when you start going and messing with the larger crews, then it becomes a problem. As a whole, I don't think that everybody should be going on a witch hunt and start hunting tryhards or whoever they are. I feel that they should just be left alone, and if they become a problem, then they become a problem.
Is there anything else before we end off this stream that you'd like people to know, or maybe about
Um,
you or militaries in general, your stance, things? Just this is really just anything that you can say here.
well, not really. To the people who do go and judge us and openly make accounts about us, basically slandering our name. These people, once they don't have any right to speak about us unless they've actually been inside the crew. And if they've actually been in, then obviously their opinion differs, and it's a lot more respected than the people who go and make accounts, making fun of the crew name, etc. But other than that, I do appreciate you having me on here and doing the interview. It's always a pleasure to go and talk to you, especially with everything that you've done for the community.
You know, the pleasure's mine, actually. I thank you for being here. Thank everyone in the chat, and I mean everyone, for showing up, regardless of whether you're spamming the chat or whether you don't care. This was a good interview, and there's more to come next week. There is a private free mode war between my crew and Scar, so be sure to stay tuned. I believe our hosts on that will be Blitzkrieg, and we'll be with you then. So thank you for being with us, and this is A60 signing out.